Yo, what is going on, everybody? It's your boy Aaron B, and I got my co-host Shane Carter in the building. So I know it's been a minute. It almost felt like to me it's been a month, but it's only been a week or so. We're back, and I hope y'all enjoy our new introduction. A shout out to Mark Guadalajaro out of the 956 for definitely hooking us up with this new introduction. It is fire. He definitely did a great job on it for sure. How you doing, Shane?
I'm doing real good. It's the time of year we always talk about where there's like pretty much dead period after the
Oh,
draft up until now, and then the OTAs happen. There's a little bit more content to talk about, and then once we get to next week, we have the June 1st deadline for salary cap implications. We don't have more to talk about, but right now we still have enough content, and then we get into that little summer lull. But right now we
yeah.
got plenty to talk about. I'm excited to get into it, and I'm loving the new intro.
Yeah, I love it too. It just it kind of gives you that energy after listening to you. Now you're getting into the show. Like, yeah, I'm feeling it right now.
Oh yeah, no doubt.
Yes, sir. So I know one of the first things we're going to talk about is OTA expectations. So I'll let you go first on the OTA expectations. It's day one already. So who do you got on your expectations?
Okay, so you might not agree, but I know one guy you and I both like is Sam Williams, a second-year edge coming in. I think even though Dorrance Armstrong and Dante Fowler had higher pressure rates as pass rushers, I think Sam Williams is the much more complete player, and I think he should be the rightful starter at that right edge spot across from DeMarcus Lawrence. I'm excited to see where he's at with that. It'll be interesting to see where they are with defensive tackle because, you know, typically the Cowboys keep 5 true DTs, right? And right now I can only think of 4 that are guaranteed to make the roster. You got Jonathan Hankins, Mozzie Smith, who we're all real excited about. Owusa Odigizua, who's by far the best pass rusher from the inside. And then Chauncey Golston, who's going to be a pure defensive tackle this year, who not only is one of their best run defenders on the defensive line, but he adds more of a pass rush element from the interior as well. If you look at his snaps, he's definitely been a better pass rusher on the inside. The depth behind linebackers is going to be interesting because with Micah Parsons kind of roaming around and stuff like that, the inside is going to be Leighton Vander Esch and a handful of guys who are going to kind of come in and play that will position. We'll see. Um, and I'm also interested to see where we are. I mean, I don't want to give away too much because we can talk about it later on. But definitely the stars on the offensive line. What's that going to look like? I don't know what you think about all that.
Uh, I actually kind of like the idea of like where's the defense of the tackles going to be at, and then Sam Williams, because I think he's definitely going to make that next move. Is like he's showing potential in the year one, and that's saying a lot for defensive line rookie year because they got to make those adjustments because they're playing against bigger and more veteran sound offensive linemen. You get to see him in year two. I think he's in a, a advance into in there. And the defensive tackle is trying to figure out. We got Mozzie Smith now. We got Jonathan Hankins, like all those. And now you're looking at the other depths because, like you said, we got Golston, and now you're adding a guy like Junior Fayoko in there as well. I'm kind of advancing to my expectations a little bit, but I do like yours.
I also wonder, like, because I have to imagine, and I tweeted this out, that I think there's only like 11 to 15, somewhere in that range, real roster spots available. Just because no, only a handful of players are guaranteed, but some are virtual locks for the roster. But I do wonder about that 6th and 7th receiver because the Cowboys typically keep 7 receivers. I wonder about like how deep they go at offensive line. The cool thing is now the new rule change. Now they can keep 3 quarterbacks on the roster, and the third one won't count against the 53 count. And so, and we saw a lot from Will Greer. I liked the way Will Greer played last preseason. I don't really know how you felt about him against Cooper Rush. I thought he actually outplayed Cooper Rush, but Cooper Rush has been a real dependable backup in this system for the past couple of years. And so that's a nice little free add-on. But OTAs, I'm interested to see like where everyone looks, especially in terms of like where they are shape-wise, because that's one thing that's kind of hurt someone like a Neville Gallimore and Tristan Hill in the past is like, how in shape are you? Have you kept up? Have you been working out? Have you been staying in constant flow to go from one off season into the new season without much tread being left on? And I think the same probably applies to safeties also, because I think the Cowboys are going to keep all 5 of the safeties they have on from the team last year, including Marquise Bell. who played who last OTAs actually played a lot of linebacker. It'll be interesting to see like if they consider him a flex player that they can maybe like save a spot for, because the Cowboys love position flexibility. Most of their best players have some kind of position flexibility, and we talked about it with Stevie and Jess on our post draft show, that a lot of the draft picks filled a lot of needs, even though it wasn't the sexiest draft they had. I thought the draft last year was at least on paper looked a lot better than this year's draft, but this year's draft really focused more along the lines of what they needed. They needed depth. They needed starters potentially down the line for certain places. But what's cool about this year is there ain't a lot of holes. There ain't that many holes that need to be plugged.
Yeah, you can't really think of like there's not like a major hole, because last year you've seen there was a couple holes, and I do like that having the Will Greer on as your QB3.
Yeah,
because I liked his gameplay in the preseason. I thought he was kind of, when I look at a QB backup quarterback to your starting quarterback, you kind of want to see some similarities to the two, and I kind of seen he had that scrambling ability. He was kind of that gunslinger type of quarterback, and you just seen like the difference when it came to how the team played surrounding them. I know it wasn't like the starters, but you seen that okay, they all surround this guy as a potential backup. But Cooper Rush showed he was a game managing type of quarterback for a few games. But yeah, I like that one, and I wanted to get into my expectation for OTA, and I want to see what Michael Gallup, who was off an ACL injury back in 2021. I want to see him be that wide receiver 3. You know, we got Brandon Cooks in that as that a veteran receiver, and just seeing how he get back to at least 2020 Michael Gallup. I'm not saying he could be back to 2019 Gallup, but I think because he's on a career low, he had 424 yards, and he played in the 14 games. I want to see what he can do. And then I'm sticking to receiver. I was a big fan out of this receiver out of South Alabama.
Jalen Tolbert.
Jalen Tolbert. I want to see what he can do. He's going to be in a less complicated offense where thank God there's not going to be no more option routes where you're forcing this guy to figure it out. He's a guy who didn't play football until the 11th grade, and now he's in the NFL. He's a guy that kind of they should have just put him to what he's best at. He's that guy that could jump and catch that ball and has a little yak ability. I think he would be our receiver 4, but I want to see what he can do in OTAs. And then lastly on my expectation is Junior Fayoko, who we drafted out of San Jose State. I kind of looked more into the film. His production. That's what you see out of him. He has an excellent motor, and he's the cousin of Vita Vea, of all defensive linemen to be related to.
He brings you down behind the line.
Exactly. And then in the interview, he said he got up to 285. So I think they're potentially going to put him at the 3 tech and probably in the pass rusher as well. And maybe he'd be a bigger edge. He could be that versatility guy. But that's my expectation for OTA. Yes, sir. Oh, so we got the next one is we have UDFAs to keep your eyes on. Who are some UDFAs you have your eyes on?
Okay, so I feel like the top ranked undrafted free agent that we got was Hunter Lupke, the fullback from North Dakota State, and there's a good reason why. He's the consensus top fullback in the draft last year, even though fullbacks don't get the love they once did. And a lot of people think he could be, Mike McCarthy's new John Kuhn, but he's essentially like, a sort of like a flex tailback fullback combo play. He's real big. He's a solid blocker from what I've seen. He ain't super fast, but he's got some burst to him, which is nice. I think it'll come down to one, if they want to keep a fullback, or if they want to just keep 4 tight ends. I think really the competition is between him and probably Sean McEwen for that extra spot, because whoever wins has to be able to play special teams and be able to block. And I doubt they keep 4 tight ends and a fullback. That wouldn't make any sense to me, at least.
Yeah.
But the player I'm actually most excited for is the receiver from Fresno State, Jalen Moreno-Crumper. Really, really good route runner, especially off the line of scrimmage. Good, I'd say probably actually great burst downfield. Ran a 4.4 flat 40 at the combine, and he was ranked as, and I take Pro Football Focus with a grain of salt, but I do understand there's work that goes in there. He was ranked as their 11th overall receiving prospect in this past year's draft and went undrafted. And so I feel like there's something there because his size he's average. He ranges anywhere from 5'10" to 6 foot, depending on where you want to put him, at about 175. So he's got average height, great speed, great second and third level burst. And because, like I said, I think the Cowboys have 5 locked receivers with Brandon Cooks, CeeDee Lamb, Michael Gallup, Kavontae Turpin, who's essentially he's a kick returner, punt returner, but he's a receiver in name only. And of course, Jalen Tolbert, who they ain't gonna give up on a 3rd round pick after just 1 year. Give him a little bit of time. I think the Cowboys, because they usually keep 7 receivers, I can't guarantee Simi Fehoko makes the team. I actually liked JMC, his tape better than their 7th round pick, Jalen Brooks. I liked his tape better than Brooks's tape. So I'd be willing to bet that he has a real legit shot, just based on film, of making one of those final roster spots. It's going to come down to is not only can he play on offense, but can he play special teams? A lot of times those final guys, those last cornerbacks, those last linebackers, those last receivers, can they play special teams? So he's definitely my favorite to make the roster, but we'll see.
Yeah, I actually had Hunter Lipke on mine, but Jalen Cropper, I'm putting this out there. He's on my 53 projection right now until further notice. But I love the film. He could be that guy we could put in a slot behind Brandon Cooks who he could learn from. And I think the only reason why he didn't get drafted because he was light. He's I think about 175, 180. He had a good combine.
Probably closer to 170 to 180, but yeah.
Yeah. He's light. And then he could put on weight. It's his first year in the league. I hope he be that hopefully that 5th or 6th receiver on a team. And I see, and hopefully Turpin can bring some value more than just being on special teams because he's got that speed. If you watch a little bit in the USFL, he showed he got a little bit. I'm not saying he's a route runner, nothing like that, but he's a shifty guy. You can break out into using those deep routes or something.
Yeah, but JMC is a much more defined receiver than Kavontae Turpin is. Kavontae Turpin last year was one of, if not the best returner in the game. And I think if you have someone like JMC who can do the same stuff he does, but as a better receiver, it allows you to keep both of them. Another guy I'm looking at is the guard from Oregon, TJ Bass. And the difference between him and Asim Richards, who was the 5th round pick from North Carolina, is that Asim Richards is a much better pass blocker, much more refined pass blocker. A lot of people want to play guard because we don't really have a clear-cut answer at guard right now, just because we don't really know the health of Terrence Steele. We don't know where Tyron Smith's going to play, where Tyler Smith's going to play. And TJ Bass played a lot of guard and played with a lot of power at Oregon. I actually thought that some people thought he was going to be like a 5th or 6th round pick, falls and undrafted, so there's value there in that one. I wonder if he's going to push for maybe that 9th or 10th offensive line spot. The Cowboys like to load up on offensive linemen.
They do.
So, and again, the health of Terrence Steele is definitely gonna determine this because. So let's just say that Terrence Steele is clear, right? And can you still hear me? Just come Okay. Don't worry about that.
Uh-huh.
So let's just say, for argument's sake, that Terrence and Tyler Smith, Tyler Biadasz, Zach Martin, Terrence Steele is your starting 5, right? Let's just assume that, right?
Yeah.
Chuma Edoga is going to be one of your backup offensive linemen. So is Matt Farniok. And that's 7, right?
Yeah.
You can't really pencil in Asim Richards as a roster lock. He's a 5th round pick. Essentially, your roster locks are 1st through 3rd, maybe 4th round picks. Because basically top 100 picks are going to be guaranteed at least the first year. Yeah. Matt Waletzko was a much better player last year pre-injury than Josh Ball was. And if it weren't for the injury, I feel like Josh Ball probably wouldn't have made the team. They want to move Josh Ball into guard. I don't see if Josh Ball, who's tackle coming out, I don't know how he's going to somehow play guard and just be better. I don't think Josh Ball is really like a roster lock. I don't even know if he makes the team at all. TJ Bass, just based on his film, might make the team just simply because he might be too good and too valuable of a backup guard player to let go. I liked his tape, didn't love it because he definitely plays a little flat-footed. But you do like his power in the run game, and especially if that's something they want to emphasize on this year. He might be one of those little project players they had. So he'd be another guy I'd probably look at.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think another reason why he probably went undrafted because I know a lot of people look at hands and arm length. He kind of had a bit of the short arms, but he showed like he does have power and he can bring more value into that run as a run blocker. And that's what we're looking at is we're going to have a good, we want to run the ball. And that's what TJ Bass will bring. And I think working more on his technique as well would definitely help. And maybe he could be that scenario where we're looking at like how we had with Ronald Leary, who could be that potential left guard. Because at this point, left guard is still open. Is like Tyron Smith is not the future. He's going to be here maybe a year or two, and then you possibly going to see Tyler Smith be that left tackle, and that left guard position is wide open for it to take. And to be honest with you, and let me see. And then I wanted to get in my UDFA. Well, I already said I got Hunter Lipke, so another
You got
guy.
another one? You
Oh
got
yeah,
like another one?
I got one. Isaiah Land out of Florida A&M. It's a guy that I watched the interview with Dan Quinn. He was highly on Isaiah Land. He was a defensive end at Florida FAMU. And
FAMU.
yes, sir. So he had excellent production in his junior and senior year. I know he got hurt his senior year, but in his junior tape, he had over 22 sacks. They call him the sack king. When you watch the film, has excellent motor. He's athletic and he's got that length. He's a little bit light, so that's why I see him at linebacker. He's between that 235 to 240 range. And
Yeah.
I think the way he makes it on this roster, if he shows value on special teams, and I think that next step up is being like a designated pass rusher. I don't know if you agree or not, but just looking at him on this team, I think he would bring value in the future. But I think they'd have to keep him on the 53 because the value player he is. I think if you have him on practice squad, some teams going to pick him up and try to figure a way to utilize his strengths.
Yeah, I love Isaiah Land. He's one of the guys I touched on in one of my articles not too long ago. But you're right. I don't really know what position he would play because he played primarily at edge. His size is, I think, 6'3", 230, 235, something like that. So he's a little light. Mm-hmm. He plays bigger than he is. You say he's longer than he is tall. Yeah. I think as a pass rusher in year one, his best play would probably be whenever they run those 3-man front packages. And they're probably going to be a 4-man front team. If they run 3-man front packages, if he were to play defense, it would be as like a stand-up edge. I do wonder if they think linebacker is his best position because he's got pretty good speed off the edge. I don't know how he is in terms of like lateral side to side because like his best play was at rushing the passer and playing the run. I think he's definitely a guy, and everyone's talking about someone like Darrell Johnson from Liberty, like as him, like because he was one of the official visitors to the Cowboys, and Isaiah Land I think was actually had a better tape, and he will be a fun prospect, especially if they're gonna play Junior Fehoko as a defensive tackle, and he would be that 5th defensive tackle in theory. That would leave the Cowboys with DeMarcus Lawrence, Sam Williams, Dorrance Armstrong, Dante Fowler as your only true 4 edge rushers. They have to keep 5 or 6 of those. I know Michael Parsons plays a lot of edge, but they're going to designate him as a linebacker so they can work with a lot more defensive linemen in there. Because the Cowboys really value defensive line depth. I think they can get away with having less linebackers because players like Donovan Wilson and Jaron Curtis, who are safeties, play a lot of like what linebackers do. So I think I would have to imagine that if they do designate Junior Fehoko as a defensive tackle, then that would probably open up a 5th, potentially 6th spot on the edge. And I think Land, of all the undrafted free agent edge rusher, I think he was the best one. I agree with you.
Yeah, and that's in the perfect situation when it comes to our defense. We had that versatility where players can play different positions because like a few years ago we were trying to figure out who's going to be a safety. We need to draft a safety in early rounds. Now we got guys like Donovan Wilson stepping up, who plays like a linebacker who's like 190 or 200 pounds. And he's basically that hitman on that team. And then Jaron Curse is that green dot guy who brings that energy to the team. And you got a Malik Hooker as well as your safety. And Izzy's can play a little bit of that big slot and then play safety as well. So
he showed a lot of value late in the season.
Oh, yeah, against the Bucks in that game. Man, you should, and that was like that was basically his debut game. You're like, okay, this guy finally showing something that we didn't see. It was like that new wrinkle to the defense. So I know there was another thing we're talking about, and that was like any holes. I didn't do the banner for that one, that is missing on this team.
We did mention left guard.
Yeah.
But I mean, outside of left guard, kicker is the one question mark because right now they got Tristan Vizcaino, and special teams coach John Fossil, he didn't really commit to Tristan. He said anyone available with a leg is like a potential for the Cowboys kicker position. They did the same thing last year when they had Jonathan Garibay. They brought in Brett Maher. It sounds like they're done with Brett Maher. Because I mean, like, and it's too bad. He actually had a solid season last year, but he's had a really bad finish to it in the playoffs. And while people like to pretend kickers don't matter, they can affect the outcome. They can't change the game because the game is played, not as much on special teams, but they can definitely affect the outcome. So, as far as left guard goes, I kind of touched on when I said that the health of Terrence Steele is going to determine where a lot of people play. I think if he ain't ready to start right away, I think Tyron Smith would be your right tackle, Tyler Smith your left tackle, and probably Chuma Edoga will be the left guard. I think they want to see if Asim Richards, the 5th-round pick, if he can play a little inside. Mm-hmm. He's got decent size. He's 6'4", 310, so he'd have to add weight if he were to become a pure guard, but he might be better at tackle. Some people think he's better at tackle. I don't, I'm a lot higher on Chuma Edoga, if he's at least a 1-year fix at guard, just because I believe in – I don't think Tyron Smith should have been back. I would rather them just stick with, availability over what we think would be okay health-wise, because they keep playing this game of, like, delaying the inevitable with Tyron Smith. And all it's doing is like, creating holes in multiple spots because we have to move players around. And left guard is, like, for the 3rd year in a row, we don't really know who's going to start. We projected, a couple years ago, we didn't know that Connor Williams was going to be the starter left guard because everyone thought that McGovern was going to take over because he played so well at right guard, and then he played left guard for a few games and he wasn't any good over there, and so Connor Williams kept the job. The very next year, Connor McGovern, he's going to be a pure left guard. People are like, oh, we saw him at left guard. He was terrible. Like, is it going to be Matt Farniok? Is it going to be this player, that player? They're going to have is it Jason Peters? And Connor McGovern ended up winning the job, and he was actually pretty good last year. And this year, I don't really know what the offensive line is going to look like, just because it ain't a matter of if Tyron Smith gets hurt, it's when, which is why I think Tyler Smith needs to be the primary left tackle regardless of health of anybody. Because if he is in fact their starter for the future, they need to focus right now on who's going to play left guard, because it shouldn't be Tyler Smith.
Yeah. At this point, that he should be working on being that future left tackle, and you can't say, oh, it was looking free agency, because a lot of the guards you're looking at are older guys or got injury history, and you're like, they should have took care of that like early in free agency, or actually drafted a offensive lineman like in that day 2 or that early day 3 range, just to solidify that offensive line.
Maybe Asim Richards is that guy. We don't know.
That'd be perfect if we get a 5th-round guy and he becomes a very solid starter year 1. Mm-hmm. Or it could be Chuma, who can basically play a little bit of everything. I think that's what is breaking down between those two. Or TJ Bass steps up as UDFA. That'd be amazing as well. Just have that guy.
Maybe Matt Farniok. We saw him play a little bit at left guard when they had to rotate the offensive line. I thought in year 2 he actually played a lot better. He definitely showed some holes in pass block, but he was definitely really good, really gritty in the running game. Mm-hmm. I think he might factor into this also, especially if they don't have a set starter at left guard. I like to see him get a shot.
That's another good point. I know they have him as a backup center for Tyler Biadasz.
Right.
But like you said, he showed improvement from definitely year 1 as that backup, and maybe he could make that next step up in year 3 and be a potential starter. It's just like there's like 4 people that could be, almost 5 people that could be potential left guard, and you're trying to figure out what's our offensive line going to look like. Mm-hmm. That's like the biggest question that's going on when it comes to the Dallas Cowboys. So now we're getting into the last section, and that is DeAndre Hopkins, Dalvin Cook to the Dallas Cowboys. So who between those two, who do you think is like a potential could be a Dallas Cowboy? I know it's kind of wishful thinking, and it's too early to figure out what's going on.
Yeah, I mean, I think we all agree Dalvin Cook would make more sense just because, like, the Cowboys were interested in DeAndre Hopkins. I talked to my guy Johnny Venerable, who actually covers the Cardinals, knows some people inside, who said that he was definitely interested in playing for the Cowboys. I think the Cowboys might have shut that door just by trading for Brandon Cooks. I'd rather get him anyway, just because I'm not that confident in the depth behind Lamb and Cooks. Gallup, in theory, would be your wide receiver 3. How's he going to look coming off another year removed from the ACL? Is Jalen Tolbert going to take the next step? We don't know. Kamate Turpin is a return man, like we said. So I'd be okay if they went out and got Hopkins, but Cook makes more sense, especially if he's a post-June 1st cut, because that would save the Vikings money, and it would also free him up from his deal. So I wonder about how much it would cost, because the Cowboys now, and this is crazy to think, they have about $12.5 million in cap space, which is like, they never have this much money this going into the season, right? Mm-hmm. So in theory, if the Cowboys were to agree on a 1-year prove-it deal for Cooks, for Cook, it would essentially them saying that, yeah, we drafted Deuce Vaughn, but we saw how good Tony Pollard is with Ezekiel Elliott when they had 2 fresh backs, and because if Tony Pollard didn't get hurt in the last game of the season, I probably wouldn't say Cook was even needed, but I'd rather have as many good backs as possible, especially if the Cowboys want to go with a more zone-heavy scheme, because like they do. Yeah. I think, in the concept of having Dalvin Cook, Tony Pollard, and even Deuce Vaughn as your gadget guy who can even return some kicks for you, play the slot, that's a backfield I can get behind, especially if they really want to focus on running the ball a little bit more. But I know you're a big Hopkins fan, so I have no doubt you probably would rather have him.
Yeah, I would, but just the idea of having that running back room with a Pollard and a Cooks, so it'd just be like you got 1A running back in Pollard, then you got 1B with Dalvin Cook. I know he's getting older; he's 28. I know in any other scenario that's young as hell, but when it comes to running back, that's when you're kind of slowly seeing that decline of that thing, and you can have it as that 1 year, like you're saying, have that 1 year deal, and just have a good running back group. And you got, I know I like Deuce Vaughn, but I'm not saying he's gonna want to have him as running back too.
He ain't a lock.
Yeah, he's still got to earn his spot on this team. It's not, and I think he will. And I know they want to use him on special teams as well, but I know it's been a while since he's done that because he didn't have to do it at Kansas State because he was the running back there. But a guy that's 5'5", 180 pounds, you kind of want him to kind of just be in that rotation of running backs. And you have a really good running back committee with Dalvin Cook in there.
The more I think about it, the more I feel like DeAndre Hopkins makes more sense, even if they only have 3 receivers, just because, I already mentioned like the questions behind Brandon Cooks and CeeDee Lamb, but also like I keep forgetting this is a passing league.
Yeah.
The ball moves through the air more and more nowadays than it used to. And even though the Cowboys want to utilize the running game more, and they should, because the best teams in the NFL, they're not just run by great quarterbacks. They have the ability to run the ball at least in spurts. And Dak Prescott, his issue last year were interceptions. But if anyone who watched the game and who watched the tape saw that about half, really maybe even more than half of his interceptions he threw, wasn't on him. It was on receivers undercutting their routes, tipping the pass, not going running the wrong routes. Like anyone who actually saw the game, they saw okay, that one wasn't on him, that one wasn't on him. The only one that comes to mind is like the Josh Sweat interception on the first play of the game against the Eagles at home. That was just a freak athletic play. That's no one's fault. Yeah, that was just a great play by Josh Sweat. And so, but if you have someone who's as sure-handed and as good a route runner as DeAndre Hopkins is, and you pair him with the Brandon Cooks, same thing. CeeDee Lamb, same thing. Even if Michael Gallup, becomes just an expensive 4th option, I feel almost more confident in the passing game at that point, because even if the Cowboys kept Tony Pollard, Deuce Vaughn, and either Malik Davis or Ronald Jones, we'll see how that works out in camp. I would almost rather them be super deep at receiver, even if it means like they're spending money on a really good wide receiver 4. Even though Dalvin Cook, you're right. You're right. Dalvin Cook makes more sense, like for what they would need, or for what they could use more of. I guess they don't really need a run back, but they could use more juice at the backfield. But I almost feel like if we really want to cut down interceptions, because like Noah Brown didn't help, Jalen Tolbert didn't help. Like you would want guys who have really good hands, want guys who can run precise routes, want guys who could even play really good against man coverage. And DeAndre Hopkins is a really good 50-50 ball kind of receiver. He ain't going to be the number 1 receiver, and that's okay. Coming in, both Brandon Cooks knows that CeeDee Lamb is the number 1 receiver in Dallas. if Cooks and Hopkins are okay being the 2 and 3, maybe even one of them being the 4, but it elevates the passing game in what's relatively a kind of like a very defensive friendly, not quarterback heavy NFC, why wouldn't they try that?
Yeah, it'd be a really good lineup, and then just in case, knock on wood, that one of the receivers is hurt, you got Michael Gallup as your fourth option, and like it didn't stop the Eagles from getting an AJ Brown. Like, hey, let's get a DeAndre Hopkins, like you were saying, an excellent route runner. He doesn't got to be receiver one anymore. You got CD Lamb as he's gonna be eventually that top 5 receiver, and another guy he could learn from. He learned from Amari Cooper as a route
He's got to
runner.
be cut though. They can't trade for him. He's got to be cut though.
Yeah, because that trade is because how much
He's too
is
expensive, and they've already shipped out too many picks for guys.
yeah. Yeah, I think that would have to be the thing is like you'd probably maybe see him in that June cut and where he's like, okay, and that's when they pick him up and they can figure out some team friendly deal. And I think that he said he would make work out with a deal. I know it's not going to be some dirt cheap deal because DeAndre Hopkins is still a valuable receiver in this league.
I wonder if 9 mil would get it done. I wonder if 1 year, 9 mil would get it done because he's made plenty of guaranteed money in his career. Like you said, he's I think he's about to turn 30 or he's already 30, about to turn 31. I can't remember.
Yeah.
He's still a really good, valuable receiver. Like he hadn't dipped so much in quality that he's gone from superstar to bum. He's just gone from superstar to really good starting receiver, and that's fine because the Cowboys already have the superstar receiver. They already have, that number one guy. I wonder like how much he's willing to take on because Odell Beckham got 19 mil, I think 15 mil guaranteed. I think it was.
Mm-hmm.
I would wonder if DeAndre Hopkins is like, hey, like my health's been a lot better than his. I'm better than Odell is, and I would probably say Hopkins is the better receiver than Odell. Even though I think Odell's a little younger.
I think about a year or so.
If he's getting that much money, I want that much money. But I wonder, like, if he would be willing to go to a place and take 9 mil, 10 mil, would that be enough to get it done for 1 year?
I think it could happen, especially if you're on a team that could possibly go to the Super Bowl. I'd say if he was trying to go, if it was some team that is like in the works of trying to develop into a team, he would definitely want more. He would want more money, but
right.
But if you can get that sweet spot in that 9 to 10 range, that's a damn good deal for a receiver like him. And then you would have 4 really good receivers, and a potential guy as that 5th with Jalen Tolbert, and then you got Turpin. You got a damn good receiving core looking at those 6 guys. And I can't think of the last time we had a really good receiving core like that in a long time.
Well, I mean, the most recently, the best receiving core the Cowboys had when everybody was healthy, the 2021 season or the 2021 season where they had it was Amari Cooper, CD Lamb, Michael Gallup, and Cedric Wilson. But this is obviously before the Michael Gallup injury, and Cedric Wilson was their 4th option, who became their 3rd option. I also look at the 2019 season when it was Amari Cooper. Randall Cobb had a real good year. People forget about that. Michael Gallup had his 1,100-yard season. The Cowboys have had solid receiving trios with decent backups. But they've never been, I would say, 4 or 5 deep at receiver.
Yeah.
To where, like, if one of those guys went down, you'd be confident in that guy. I think the year they had Lamb, Cooper, Wilson, and Gallup would probably be the most recent. But if they got Hopkins, they'd be 5, 6, maybe 6 deep at receiver.
And speaking of another I know it's going way back a little bit, but when it comes to like a Jalen Marino, Cropper Marino, he kind of brings that similar vibe with Cedric Wilson. If you watch some of the film, he got that ability he was a former quarterback and then bring jet sweep moves. So you'd be in a great place when it comes to receiver, just adding the value, and then you get a Hopkins
for the now and later, right?
Yeah, just have those like the future. And then you got the now. It's like I'm already going back to DeAndre Hopkins. Can we get him to the Cowboys? Would be an excellent choice.
So would you rather have Hopkins or Cook?
I'm like you were saying, it's a passing game. I'd rather go with Hopkins. But if we get Cooks, I'm not going to complain at all. Like
Cook would definitely be cheaper.
Oh, it's going to be cheaper. He's a running back, and if he gets cut, I know his contract's going to be a little bit. What would you say his range would be like?
For money?
Yeah, money. if he got touched.
The running back market really took a dip this offseason. I think the last really good running back to get paid big money was like either Zeke or someone who got 15 mil, and now running backs don't make 15 mil anymore. I would think for 1 year, if he asks for more than 7, I don't know if I want to do that, just because Tony Pollard's already going to make 10.9 this year from the franchise tag.
Mm-hmm.
And if it ain't that I don't think you're worth that much money, it's that if I'm paying you that much money, I expect heavy production out of you. But I don't know if I'm necessarily going to give you all the carries. If it's going to be a pure, Pollard, you're going to get 175 carries this season, and so is Cook, then I'm okay giving Cook like him 7 mil, maybe 8, depending on incentives. I think incentives will play a huge part in there.
Got to be.
But it would depend on like what role they wanted to play. Did they want to play the Zeke role, the in between the tackles kind of running back? Because Cook hadn't really shown any wear or tear that indicates that he's going to be bad. He's just gotten older, and he's like 27, like you said. Mm. And the Vikings really right now are in financial straits, so they have to make some tough choices. So I think 8 mil with incentives would be probably the most I'd go, but only if the concept is that he's going to get a heavy dose of carries. Otherwise, there's no point in paying him that much money.
Just to bring some more into it about Dalvin Cook, he did play all 17 games last year, started all of them, and he had 1,173 rushing yards, and he averaged 4.4. Still really good in rushing.
Availability is the best ability sometimes.
Yeah, that's the main thing. Is like you can't say, oh, he's been injured. He hasn't really had an injury game. He's been majority healthy. He missed a few games, but he's always been, like you're saying, he's been available. And then he also brings some value as a receiver as well. The only thing you really got to worry about is just sometimes he fumbles the ball. He had 4 fumbles, and that were for a fumble for loss. But outside of that, it's just he still could bring value as a running back. Mm-hmm. And if you can get him for that, between 5 to 7 million, if you can get him in that, maybe reach him in the middle with some incentives.
So 8 mil is too much for you? 7 mil is recapping it?
Yeah, it's just because like we said, we just signed Tony Pollard to 10 mil with that franchise tag. And now you're going to add another guy, and you kind of with a similar contract, and who's probably going to get less carries. I wouldn't mind as long as it had incentives, and we did do the 8 million.
Right.
But that was all we had today. But before I let you, before we go, I was gonna give the floor to you, Shane. If you got anything coming up soon or anything going on, the floor are you.
Not just yet. Something might be brewing. I'll update as we go. If you follow me on Twitter or even on Instagram, it's the same handle. You'll see any potential updates that I have. For right now, nothing new. But what me and Aaron are gonna start trying to do is like having the show once, maybe twice a week on the same days, on the same time. It's just once we get our schedules figured out. Mm-hmm. And just make sure y'all are liking and subscribing to the channels, retweeting the shows, all of that. Because ever since we started going with this format, we've increased in viewership. We want to keep on going. We want to keep on giving y'all quality Cowboys content because y'all deserve it. Because there's enough Skip Baylesses and Will Canes in the world to make you sick. And I'm tired of hearing them talk. And I think y'all deserve to hear us talk instead.
Yeah, well, them guys been out there for way before our time. It's time for the new generation of
even the new generation. It's just crappy analysis.
Yeah. Yeah,
I've seen call it analysis.
Yeah, I actually seen your post, and I definitely like your list, especially Nate Burleson. That's one of my favorite ones.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's one of the main guys that kind of got me into wanting to be one of him and Rich Eisen and a couple other guys. But we'll probably do that for another show and stuff. But I'm gonna do a show with my guy Sean Bogle on Red Dot Radio on Friday. I don't know when he's gonna post it, but definitely check that one out for sure. But that's all we got for y'all. Y'all have a good one. Peace. And y'all have a good one. Yes, sir.
We out.
Yes, sir.